It was a day of raids. Sibiya's home stormed, Maumela's assets seized, and fresh claims of a raid by Senzo Mchunu's Chief of Staff. Meanwhile, Police Chief General Fannie Masemola testified before Parliament. What does it all mean in the context of this Mkhwanazi saga? Stick around to find out. Spread the fire. Welcome back to the Sizwe Mpofu-Walsh experience, or SMWX for short. My. So much happening in our country. Let's go right to the heart of this Mkhwanazi story because number one, we had a raid on Shadrack Sibiya's home. We had a raid on Morgan Maumela's home. We had accusations of a raid from Senzo Mchunu's Chief of Staff, and Masemola was testifying in Parliament. It hasn't been a good day for those who are accused of having committed indiscretions. Now, the first raid I want to talk about was at Shadrack Sibiya's house. Who is Shadrack Sibiya? Why does he matter? He's the person who General Mkhwanazi accuses of being the key point person in the South African police for criminal cartels to have influence over the South African police service. Now, his house was raided this afternoon in full view of the public. Cameras circled, journalists were indignant, and suddenly we had all these people in and around Shadrack Sibiya's house. He actually conducted something of an impromptu press conference, and I want you to take a look at this clip to get a sense of what was going down earlier today.
Colleagues betrayed me.
Who betrayed you?
Including him. The last time I was with the National Commissioner, we were fine. The last time I saw him, we were okay.
Has he been to your compound?
Many times.
Ian, are you going to challenge the search and seizure warrant in a court of law?
We've been at this for about an hour and a half now. I don't want to, if I started giving my thoughts on this process after 1.5 hours was not giving proper and respectful advice to my clients, it would be ludicrous. So what I can say to you is that we will fully investigate and interrogate what has happened today. And we will, once the application, which wasn't served on us, I must just say, which I will raise in court, we want the affidavit which gave rise to the search and seizure. That hasn't been given to us, and I publicly called for that.
Did they tell you what they're busy investigating and why they're here?
Effectively, what they did was they gave us the search and seizure warrant.
And what does it say, sir?
There's about 4, 5, or 6 pages there, but it's essentially with regard to investigations into alleged defeats of justice and things that have been in the media. There's nothing new.
Money laundering, corruption, all those charges, everything they could find.
So that's Shadrack Sibiya. On the left, his lawyer, Ian Levitt, fielding questions over there. Now, what's interesting and important about this is that this is the real confirmation, the first real confirmation that we've got about Sibiya being involved in an ongoing criminal investigation. When the police raid your property, that's not just for fun. It means that there is potentially more to come as a result of that investigation. So Sibiya says the defeating the ends of justice, corruption, and money laundering, those charges are clearly being taken seriously, and this is probably a first move in that process. Well, there's so much happening. We unfortunately have to move on from there because another figure who has been cast in the web of all of this criminal syndicate influence over the South African government is a fascinating figure. Firstly, he's the nephew of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Secondly, he's alleged to have improperly benefited from tenders at Tembisa Hospital, according to an SIU investigation, to the tune of some 800 plus million rands. He's a figure whose picture is very hard to come by, but who has been written about by various investigative journalists such as Jeff Wicks as someone who's extremely powerful, potentially even someone higher in the chain of command than Akat Matlala, who has been mentioned a lot by General Mkhwanazi. This person is none other than Morgan Maumela. Now, after this SIU investigation, today we had more steps taken by the SIU to what appears to be seize assets of luxury cars in this opulent home in Sandhurst in Johannesburg. Now, the SIU does have the power to do this. The SIU, though, remember, is not a body like the police, so it doesn't investigate or prosecute like the National Prosecuting Authority. It's involved mainly in civil action, so it's about getting people who have improperly taken money from the state or been contractors to the state to pay that money back. But there aren't criminal consequences associated with what the SIU does. The SIU, though, does have the power to seize assets and thereafter to even freeze assets if courts allow them to do so. So what would have happened for all of this to be possible is that the SIU would have had to get the requisite permissions to go to Mr. Maumela's house based on the investigations and take those assets into their possession. Why does this matter? I mean, the house was top billing stuff. But of course, Maumela's proximity to the president unfortunately can't be overlooked. Because today we learned an interesting piece of information. It's public knowledge that President Ramaphosa lives, or one of his homes is in Joburg. Obviously, he also has his presidential houses, which belong to the state. But one of his homes is in Joburg, either in the same suburb or in an adjacent suburb to where Mr. Maumela's house is. So they live not far from each other, actually. But we've heard that the president doesn't know this person, never met him. So he doesn't know his own nephew who lives in a similar or the same suburb. It just doesn't sound very likely to me. Stretches the bounds of credulity. Surely the president would have seen this massive house and known that one of his relatives, even if distant, lived in it if he was in the neighborhood. Look, that doesn't mean the president was involved in the wrongdoing that Morgan Maumela was involved in, but it just does cast doubt over this line that we've got from the presidency that the president doesn't know who this person is. That just doesn't seem to me to hold up, and hopefully further questions will be asked so that we can get some clarity. The president, by the way, is living his best life in Dublin, so life is good. Life is good. Okay, it was a day of raids, like I said. Now, a third figure who features in all of this is someone by the name of Cedric Nkabinde. Now, he was the chief of staff of Senzo Mchunu, who is the Minister of Police, the person at the apex of criminal justice in our country. The Minister of Police gets to do all kinds of appointments and make sure that he can set the policy for the future of South Africa's police services. And of course, the president appoints the Minister of Police and the National Commissioner. But the Minister of Police really has a whole load of power, as the current National Commissioner has been saying in Parliament recently. Now, the Minister of Police has a chief of staff. This is kind of like a very senior aide who moves around with the Minister of Police, does administrative work for the minister. And Cedric Nkabinde is that person for Senzo Mchunu, who's currently on gardening leave, because Cyril Ramaphosa said, "You chill at home while this whole investigation happens." Now, Cedric Nkabinde, the chief of staff of the minister, said that last night his home was raided. What's going on with all these raids, people? Mkhwanazi finishes in Parliament one day. The next day, like 3 different raids are happening. Now, Nkabinde is on the side of Minister Mchunu, obviously. So Mkhwanazi has been accusing Minister Mchunu of wrongdoing. And in fact, in his testimony before Parliament, he pointed out that Nkabinde was a key person who was intermediating between these figures in criminal syndicates and the minister. And Mkhwanazi began to become quite suspicious of Nkabinde. Nkabinde now says that people dressed in camouflage, he alleges, people dressed in camouflage came to a residence which he's associated with, saw his brother there, who they initially seemed to have thought was Nkabinde, and when they realized it was his brother, said that they had been sent by Masemola. Now, I will hasten to add that we are in something of a silly season in the criminal justice system. Everyone is making accusations of everyone else, and the media can't get enough of it. Journalists and maybe even some podcasters realize how deep the public interest is in this, and people are moving to peddle all kinds of different narratives. For now, these remain allegations. You see, the other two raids had photographic evidence, videographic evidence. If the police wrongfully did raid someone's residence, you would expect some evidence for that. So at the moment, I'm not in a position to confirm what Nkabinde has said because we just haven't seen any evidence except for his say-so. Now, if further evidence does emerge, all the better. Then one would have to inquire into exactly who those people were and what they did. But for now, all we have is him saying that this happened. Now, we have had not just allegations, but some at least conclusive proof that the political killings task team has not always done things lawfully. So we know that in the Eastern Cape at Fort Hare, a forensic investigator investigating corruption has come out criticizing the political killings task team because she was actually detained. And I believe that the people who are involved in that are facing disciplinary processes, or General Masemola intimated something like that. And Mkhwanazi himself also said that where people have broken the law as part of the political killings task team, they should be held accountable. So the task team doesn't have a perfect record, even as it did do very well in trying to combat the crimes it was set up to establish. But this, I think, is a story that is more of an open loop, and we need further corroboration before jumping to any conclusions, I would suggest. Finally, Police Chief Fannie Masemola, the National Commissioner, was in Parliament today being grilled by evidence leaders, or at least questioned by evidence leaders. Tomorrow he'll be questioned by MPs. Hey, it was nice. The stream was not 14 hours, people. We actually ended the stream at a reasonable hour today. One more thing that I think is interesting, because I spoke to how the president, the minister are really important to this entire story. I want to play you a clip that kind of has been lost in the wash of all of this from the 6th of March, because this came up in the testimony today and Masemola was quizzed about this. It means that it's very likely for President Ramaphosa to be a witness. We know Senzo Mchunu is obviously going to be a witness. And I want you to take a look at what Senzo Mchunu said about President Cyril Ramaphosa's attitude towards the political killings task team. This is the team that caused all this controversy because Minister Mchunu wrote a letter saying, "You are disbanded," or "I want to disband you immediately." This is what he said to Parliament in March. Have a look.
I'm saying the team was established for a particular purpose. There needed to be a time frame, and there wasn't any time frame. And we have discussed the matter with the President of the Republic, because while it was not a presidential task team, it was his initiative to do so, but it became a ministerial committee in practice. And therefore, we have had a discussion with the President of the Republic, and we are in agreement that we can look into the matter the way we've looked at it currently.
So there you have it. The minister himself said he spoke to the president and they were in agreement that the task team should be disestablished. That's the effect of what he said there. And this was important because Masemola was actually asked about this by the evidence leader in Parliament today to say, are you aware this is what Minister Mchunu said? And Masemola then responded to that. He had actually spoken about this at the commission as well, to say he heard from the minister that the president condoned the disbandment of the political killings task team. This was the same parliamentary sitting where Mkhwanazi, right at the end, came in and basically actually dropped a whole lot of bombshells that the public didn't really quite digest properly, which he then reiterated and delved into in more depth in his July 6th press conference. So tomorrow, where do we go from here? Tomorrow, MPs will continue, and now that the evidence leaders are done leading the evidence, so the way this committee is working is that there's an advocate who kind of leads the evidence in the statement of the witness, and then the following day the MPs get to question the person on the evidence that has been led. So tomorrow with Masemola, MPs will be able to ask questions. I can't wait to see what Glynis Breitenbach of the DA asks, what Julius Malema of the EFF asks, what questions ANC MPs field and MK Party MPs field, Action SA, Patriotic Alliance. It's going to be fun, that's for sure. So let's see what Masemola says. Let's see what he does, and let's see what he gets asked. Fam, it's so good to be riding with you. This channel is just booming in a sensational way. Great to see all the people who have joined. If you're new around here, welcome aboard. If you've been riding with us since 2019, it's good to see you back here. Someone in the comments said, now I have to miss work because SMWX has dropped an episode. So I'm glad to be helping you, take those breaks from work, just take a deep breath and inform and update yourself. On this channel, we really aim to build a community, a politically conscious family of people who are really caring about the country, informing themselves, educating themselves. And then it's up to you whether you agree or disagree with what direction the country should go in. But at least you are now up to speed with what happened today. So stick around. We are dropping roughly daily summaries, especially on weekdays, for all that is happening in Parliament and the Madlanga Commission. And check out our live streams as well of Parliament and its hearings. How else can you help if you're still sticking around? You can like, you can share, you can subscribe, you can give us a rating on podcast platforms where you can listen to us on the go. You can buy merch at smwx.store, and you can also keep it locked right here and see us on the next one. Have a good one. Aye.